Hi, I'm Trish Tagley, and welcome to Trish Time. Today, our guest is Edward Martin Jr., President and Director at the Hartsdale Pet Cemetery. So, hello, Ed.
Hi, Trish.
Hi, welcome back to the show. Welcome again. We did speak earlier, so that's why I said welcome back. Why don't we start off the show with you giving us a bit of history as
Sure.
how you came to the Hartsdale Pet Cemetery.
Sure. The cemetery started in 1896. It's the first pet cemetery in America, and it's the second overall in the world. There's a pet cemetery in London. It's in Hyde Park, and while they were first in 1888, they haven't buried a pet in over years. They just keep it as kind of a museum. It's beautiful. My wife went there and liked it, but we're the oldest operating pet cemetery in the world.
And how was it, because it was Dr.
Dr. Samuel Johnson really was the founder, although there were other people helping him, and of course that long back things get a little sketchy. We try to research it the best we can. But the story goes that Dr. Johnson, who was a significant veterinarian, he was one of the founders of the ASPCA, and he was active in the state for animals, looking after their welfare. And but he also had a practice in Manhattan. And one day, a woman came to him and wanted him to take care of her pet. And unfortunately, the pet passed away in his office. And she became very, very upset and wanted to know, well, what happens now? Normally, people did not ask the veterinarian that, but he answered her, and he told the truth. And really, the pet would kind of just be disposed of, maybe at the incinerator or, unfortunately, with the trash. She became very upset again and said she didn't want that to happen. And she had no place where she could bury her pet. She lived in an apartment. She knew that the city was growing and growing, and she was afraid to bury in an empty lot because the building would be on top of it. So Dr. Johnson took pity on her and told her that he had a little place north, which is very rural then, in Hartsdale.
Yes.
And he would go there on weekends and so forth. And as we chatted before, I have pictures of Central Avenue being a dirt road at that time. But he told her she could take the train up to Hartsdale. There was a stop. And she could take her pet about a mile from the train station where his property was. And she was free to bury the pet on his property. She took him up on it. And that started a barrage. She told a couple of people about it. And sure enough, Dr. Johnson got numerous calls of whether they could do it. So this got going, and more people did it. When I say more and more people, maybe 100. And these folks would meet at the cemetery that buried their own pets. Some would put up a monument or a fencing around their plot and so forth. And they enjoyed each other's company. However, as time went by, some of the plots became abandoned and unkempt, and Dr. Johnson, along with many of the plot holders, the people who buried there, decided that they wanted to make this cemetery as much like a human cemetery as could be. So they wrote down the rules and regulations. They raised money from plot holders and others to make the cemetery look very attractive. It wasn't that it was bad before, but it was very rural. So they organized it, put in paths and so forth and so on. And in 1914, they incorporated. That's still the corporation that we operate under today. And here we go.
Yeah.
And we're still there.
Well, that's really actually a great service, not just to the community, but to different people who, basically, as we know, treat their pets as family. And there are various markers. There's a huge mausoleum that's there. There's also, some say there's some celebrities there. We'll talk about that in a minute. But in 1996, that was the centennial celebration of the Pet Cemetery. And tell us about the obelisk that's there now.
Well, we decided, and at that time, the person who came with me, I came to the cemetery in 1974, along with a childhood friend, Pat Grasso, came with me, and we entered into the cemetery, and we made decisions jointly. So we had a nice little ceremony in 1996 celebrating 100 years of operation. Many in the pet community enjoyed that, even not in this part of the country. And we decided that we would make a little small area, a centennial park. Park would be an exaggeration, but we put up 2 obelisks there, which is a form of a monument. And we if somebody donated $500 to the cemetery, we put their name on the obelisk, and that's been very well. And people enjoy that. They like to see the name. Some people put their pets' names on there. So we think it's a beautiful place. It's right as people come in from the West Gate, which is on North Washington Avenue, to see it. But we're very proud of it.
And there's also different, aside from the markers, there's also different sculptures that you can see and different features on the stones. For example, there is this one where this man's urn is on top of one of the headstones. So you want to talk about that?
Sure. There's been a little activity on that. Many people don't know this, and it's not something that we advertise or anything. But for years, long before I came there, the folks who owned plots at the cemetery where their pets were allowed to bury human cremated remains. And I'm always, lawyers tell me, be sure you say this, Ed, we are not a human cemetery. We're a pet cemetery, and pets are buried there. However, again, the legalistic part of it is that once one is cremated, as many people, if you think about it, do a lot of things with human cremains. Throw them in a park or in the ocean or a favorite place, their backyard, whatever. So there's really nothing special about it, just that these folks feel that this is where they'd want to be. We're very proud of that. One reason, of course, they want to be with their pets. But many people tell us, and I want to say this the right way, that many people prefer the pet cemetery as a park-like situation to a human cemetery, because we're smaller and more intimate and so forth, and we're family operated. We was family operated even before I came there, but right now Pat Grasso, my former partner, retired a while ago, and 2 of my sons are with me. My daughter-in-law is also with me. My brother-in-law, who really started with me. My mother used to work there. So it's really family operated, and I think people like that. It's very intimate. They want to know the people, because there aren't a lot of people who bury pets. The people who do it, of course, are very fond of their pets, and they want to memorialize them just like they do other members of the family. So they think of, and I'm one of them, think of their pets as part of their family. I personally don't think of them as my children. I have 3 sons. But I certainly do think of the relationship that I have with my pet now and the pets before that. We take care of them. We give them food, shelter, medical care. So to some of us, it's an appropriate thing to do. Cemeteries really exist so that the people who are left, the family members and friends, can come and pay their respect. And it's nice, whether it's human or pet. And it's a nice thing, because in many cases, when someone or an animal passes away that you've loved. It's not a great time. I mean, sickness or whatever. But it seems when you go and visit a stone, or you think of your parents as young again, and your pet, which has gotten old, as a puppy and running around. So it plays a role for those of us who do this.
Mm-hmm. And there's also, you pointed out to me when I did visit you, there's also this sculpture there of the cats and the rabbit. And maybe you wanted to talk about that sculpture a little bit.
Yes, I'm proud of that too. Not that I did it, but I'm proud of the reason that the plot holder, Mr. Selden, did this. And the story is that Mr. Selden came up, oh my goodness, probably about 15 years ago. He did not even know there was a cemetery there. He wanted to cremate the pets, and once we started cremating pets, more and more people came to us. And Mr. Selden, while he was having his pet cremated, he was sitting on the front porch. It was a nice day, and he talked to my brother-in-law, Len, while the process was taking place. And he said, boy, I wish I could be buried in a place like this. And Len said to him, well, you can, but you have to be cremated first.
Yeah.
We said, well, that's not a problem for me. I plan to be cremated anyhow. So he bought a plot, and a pretty significant size plot for a cremated pet, which of course doesn't take a lot of room. But he said he wanted a plot that size because he wanted to put a special monument, and really a monument that was a sculpture. And he thought about it for a long time. He talked to me about it only because we have to approve the size and so forth. And when he did it, he put up, at least what I think is a beautiful monument memorial. And many people ask about it. And it's a memorial with 4 cats playing instruments and a rabbit. And he told me the story of it, so I'll tell the story here.
Sure.
Is that he chose this and wanted the story because the story of the cat band with the rabbit, Bunny, enjoyed music and became a musician, and a pretty good musician. And he wanted to join the cat band. That was his ambition. And he went to the leader of the cat band and said, boy, I'd really like to play with you guys. And the cat leader said, well, that's impossible. Why not? He said, because you're a rabbit, you're not a cat. And the rabbit was very, very disappointed. And he went out and bought a cat mask and put it on, went back to the leader and did his audition. And he was a very talented musician. And the cat band said, boy, you really are good, and we would welcome you into the band. And so the rabbit took the mask off, and the cat leader said, well, you're so good, you're with us. Now, why did he put up that particular memorial? Well, he said he thought of the pet cemetery as that. The idea of the cemetery gave him the idea. Because if you took a tour around the cemetery, and anybody is welcome to come in and do that, you don't have to bury a pet there. You can come in and find an interest. That there are Stars of David, there's Celtic cross, there's Russian crosses, there are other religious symbols that are there, and they're not in different areas, so it's not that it's a Catholic cemetery or a Jewish cemetery at all. And we don't distinguish a cat area as opposed to a dog area or other. They're all together, and we think of it, a name, kind of a name that people have given to the cemetery is the peaceable kingdom in Hartsdale, where the lion and the lion and the lamb lay down together. So for that reason, it's a beautiful statue and we love it, but really the reason for it is very important to me, and that's how I look at the cemetery. Because to me, the people who bury pets are special people. And we might talk about celebrity pets and so forth, and there are some, but most of the pets there come from shelters, from people who rescue them. And some of the people, it's true, are very wealthy. Some are not so wealthy. They come from different parts of the country and some from different parts of the world, but they have the one thing in common, and that is they love their pets.
Mm-hmm. And the one feature that, that I did notice there is that you actually do have pets, people burying pets where they brought them over from their motherland.
Yes.
So, yeah.
There are some. There are pets that have come from Egypt, from Italy, Hungary, rather, from many, many different places. Mm-hmm. They were with folks who lived over there and came over, and they brought their pets with them. And you'll see that born in Egypt, came to New York, and so forth and so on. However, there are some. I can think of one, the most recent one. A gentleman was working in London. He came from New York. He was in finance, and he was in London doing business, and his pet passed away, and he told us, these are his words, not mine, that he wouldn't think of burying any place else. So he came over with his deceased pet, made special arrangements, and came to the cemetery. And once again, these are things that make us very proud.
Mm-hmm. And aside from this, there are certain urban legends about the cemetery, about Rin Tin Tin and Lassie being in there. And what do you have to say about that?
They're not there. I do not know where Lassie is. Mm-hmm. And I should say, in many cases, dogs that we see, Lassie, Rin Tin Tin, there's a number of them. There's not one Rin Tin Tin, there are a few.
Yes.
But I did have the occasion, oh my goodness, probably 20 years ago, maybe longer than that, to visit Paris. Mm-hmm. And the cemetery, the next oldest one is a cemetery. When I say Paris, it's like we're not in New York, we're outside of New York. Well, they're outside of, I forget the name of the little town that mm-hmm. they're in. But I visited. It's a very, very lovely place. And there's a statue of Rin Tin Tin, and at least one of the Rin Tin Tins. Yes. And supposedly we had a little trouble communicating, because to say that my French is poor is exaggerating. I really don't have any French. But with help, we got the word that Rin Tin Tin was over, or a Rin Tin Tin was over making a film, and passed away there. Oh. and was buried there.
Okay. Well, besides that, there's also, I mean, for people, just different things, as you said, even if you don't have a pet that's buried there, it is a beautiful location. And, some of the features there's certain, because pets are buried sometimes in the same plot. There's more than one yes. pet in yes. the same plot. And the owners have a bit of a sense of humor, so they name their pets certain names that kind of go together, and one of them is like Tanqueray and Tonic, and then Bagel and Bialy. So if people do visit, as you said, there's different, different features there that they can see aside from the beautiful location. And there's one special cat that does belong to one celebrity, that they might spot sure. the headstone there. The other thing you might want to talk about briefly is the War Dog Memorial.
Sure. Well, let's start with the most recent celebrity, which was Mariah Carey. Mm-hmm. It's over 10 years now, and originally her manager, I believe, if I have the correct terminology for that, came up and bought the lot. And shortly after that, Mariah Carey came up with this gentleman and buried Clarence the cat. And it's a nice monument. I personally wasn't there when she buried, but I understand she was very happy with it, and I think has come back a few times, not many. I'm sure she's very, very busy. Mm-hmm. But that's the most recent celebrity we had. Diana Ross, before that, buried cremated remains of a pet. Unfortunately, there's no monument for that. But there are, the drummer, Gene Krupa, George Raft, the actor, had buried there. Barry Gray, a commentator, buried there. Joe Garagiola and Ralph Kiner have buried there. But once again, most of the pets are just, not
normal
from.
people.
Yeah, we did have my son is going to be mad at me, but we had one of the celebrity chefs buried there fairly recently.
Oh, okay.
But I'm searching for his name.
Rocco, would it be?
You are right.
That was a guess.
You are
there
right.
you go.
yeah.
So, well, I mean, it's good to know that he does, he had enough love for his pet that he took the time to come up here and pay some respect by having his pet have a memorial where he could visit and all of that.
And as far as the names are concerned, I was very interested in that too. And I wrote a little article years ago about the cemetery, and I took the time to walk around. It's amazing, even though I had been there for a number of years, you notice things when you're looking for a purpose. And there were a number of interesting names that the folks would name their pet, like I say, gin and tonic or Tanqueray and tonic.
Yeah.
It started when someone came in, they were looking for their dad's plot, and he did not have a monument. The dad did not erect a monument yet, but I looked it up on the map, and I took him, and I said, well, this is easy to find. And I went up there, and on one side, there was a monument with the name Whiskey on it, and on the other side was bourbon or something else like that. I said, well, this guy's happy. And I saw names of, another gentleman pointed out to me there's a pet there named Princeton, so we have Ivy League graduates at the cemetery.
Yes,
and
you do.
A few nice names, and of course some are very, very touching things that put on. I found 3 where one had I'm not sure of the pet's names, but let's say Brownie, and he's my friend. And then there was another one that talked about their pet as my best friend. And then a very sad one I found where somebody had put on there, my only friend. And, it can be very touching, and it just shows the role that pets play. It's different than a human role. It's unconditional love, and when you have the pet and you have teenagers, the pet's there while the kids are out having a good time, you're worrying about them. So it's been very rewarding for me. And would you like me to talk about the war dog too? Sure. The war dog is a centerpiece at the pet cemetery. And it was erected in 1923 for dogs that had served in World War I. It's interesting because on the monument itself, it doesn't say World War I, it just says the World War. I guess optimistically they thought maybe there wouldn't be any wars, and they were wrong. And what happened in World War I, there was a lot of trench warfare where the soldiers on both sides would come out of trenches at certain time. They call that over the top, coming out of the trench. And of course, they were just mowed down. Not all of them, but it was, the odds of surviving were remote. If you were wounded, that was, So they had dogs who were trained to do certain things. One was from headquarters, which was behind the trench. If you wanted to get a message to, let's say, a major or a captain out in the field, the dogs were given a message, and they knew who to go to. They were trained to go to a certain person, whether it was by smell or training or whatever, and that played a major role in the battle. And They also, the dogs played a mercy role. They would come out, and with their sense of smell, they could determine which of the soldiers were dead and which were wounded and needed help. And once they sensed that the soldier was dead, they left because there was nothing they could do. They then found somebody who was wounded, and they had a canteen around their stomach, body, and they were trained to unhitch the canteen, and it would do two things. One, it would give a little bit of help to the soldiers to drink some water, but just as importantly, when the medics came out and were trying to help the men, of course they were in severe danger too, the medics would only go to the men who had canteens next to them because they knew they had a chance of surviving. Mm-hmm. Well, at the end of the war, when the soldiers came home, many of them, kept their relationship with other soldiers, and many of them talked about the thousands of lives that were saved by the courageous acts of the dogs, and they wanted to do something. They wanted never to have the acts of these dogs forgotten. So they raised some money. They came to the cemetery and asked if they could help, and one way they could help, in addition to maybe raising some money from the folks who buried there, is if the cemetery would give them a piece of land to put up this beautiful, beautiful memorial. Mm-hmm. So they finally completed it in 1923. It's a beautiful sculpture of a shepherd dog, although there were other kinds of dogs that served. And they have the canteen next to the dog and so forth, illustrating what the dogs did, exactly what it was. And as I say, it was put up in 1923 on a big block of granite, and as I say, the sculpture to me is absolutely stunning. Mm-hmm. And it was put up, and still to this day, as a matter of fact, we just had it a few weeks ago on a Sunday. We have an event at the cemetery. We have more than one event, but this event that takes place in June is to honor not only the courageous acts of those dogs that served in World War I, but dogs that served in other next war, World War II and so forth, and even today where they guard airfields and drugs, and also to honor seeing eye dogs and dogs that help in many, many ways that many don't know about. Mm-hmm. So it's a great day, and anybody who wants to come or find out when our next one is next year, we can get a schedule, and love to have you there.
Great. So thank you very much for being with us. And as you know, you heard about the Hartsdale Pet Cemetery. It's located right on Central Avenue, and it's a wonderful location. Hopefully you will come visit. And this is all for Trish Time this week. Come back next time. Bye-bye.